This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The Lebanese people held a funeral procession for Brigadier General Francois Alhaj. Alhaj was assassinated Wednesday along with his bodyguard in an explosion of a booby-trapped car in Babda near Beirut. The funeral took place in the middle of the official mourning period. Speaking on behalf of army leadership, Shawki al-Masrir gave a speech in the Lady of Lebanon Church in Harissa. He called on the Lebanese parties to take what he described as a brave historic stance, which would lead to reconciliation and agreement without compromise or prior conditions.
يا حبيب قلبي انت يا حبيب روحي انت يا بي
على وقع نشيد الموت تقدم موكب اللواء الركن فرانسوا الحاج ورفيقه.
The funeral procession of Brigadier General Francois Alhaj and his bodyguard, Khair al-Hidwan, moved to the hymn of death. The large procession gathered people who are separated politically and who have failed to unite even with the past series of assassinations. In the Basilica of the Lady of Lebanon, the Mass was led by the Maronite Patriarch, which broke the Patriarch's custom of only leading the Mass for presidents of the Republic. This move shows the Patriarch's dismay of targeting the military's politics and security. Although politics was absent from the Patriarch's speech, it was readily present in the speech of the army leadership, which called for a historic stance to move away from holding grudges.
ندعو الجميع إلى اتخاذ موقف تاريخي شجاع.
We call on everyone to take a brave and historic stance that will enable us to build bridges of trust and communication between parties, to hasten reconciliation and agreement without conditions, deals, or restrictions, because reconciliation and agreement do not depend on the balance of power or political inclinations.
This call aims at breaking through the ongoing crisis in Lebanon. The opposition chose Michel Aoun to speak on their behalf, and the pro-government camp regarded this as the final nail in the coffin of Monday's meeting. The opposition insists that the election of a president, along with a political settlement, must go hand in hand to avoid further crises. All this is taking place at a time when people are observing in dismay. The dismay is strongest in Ramesh, the city on the northern border, which sadly and worriedly received the dead body that Beirut said goodbye to. The day of mourning took place under a fog which loomed over the political scene that is imprisoned by each party's insistence on its own view of what's important. There does not seem to be a solution in the near future to end the political crisis and the vulnerable security of the country. Bushra Abdel Samad, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
بشرى عبد الصمد الجزيرة بيروت.
The assassinations in Lebanon can also be seen in Gaza, but at a much larger scale. 3 Palestinians, including 2 activists from Al-Quds brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, were martyred and 2 others were injured during an Israeli airstrike that hit a civilian vehicle in Al-Zitoun area in eastern Gaza. As usual, Israel claimed that the victims of the airstrike were activists involved in launching missiles towards Israeli areas.
شرق مدينة غزة وكعادتها زعمت إسرائيل أن المستهدفين في الغارة هم ناشطون مسؤولون عن إطلاق.
The airstrike was the latest crime of the Israeli occupation, which continues its killings, destruction and raids. In the West Bank, the settlement activities have not stopped, even after the conference in Annapolis, which has been put to the test as Israeli and Palestinian negotiators started the final status negotiations. Our correspondents, Zuhair Sakala and Mohammed Al-Sayed, provide us with more details about what is happening in Gaza and the West Bank.
Mahmoud Abu Sha'ban is managing this commercial company. He hoped that the situation will improve after the peace conferences and talks, the latest of which was the Annapolis conference. However, he is now disappointed for the lack of any tangible result.
Everyone was hoping that the situation will improve after the Annapolis conference, such as easing the passage of commercial traders at Israeli checkpoints, but unfortunately this has not happened. The Israelis continue to hold Palestinian products at the ports.
The owner of this restaurant has similar grievances. There are no customers and the sales are down. It has been 2 weeks since the Annapolis conference, but no tangible results have been felt in Gaza. To the contrary, the siege has been intensified.
The siege that has been imposed on us is worse than it used to be. The aggression and incursions have also increased.
Were the Palestinians wrong to be optimistic about the Annapolis conference? The conference resulted in more incursions, death and injuries, such as what happened 2 days ago in the southern Gaza. The occupation has not spared any Palestinian city in Gaza, and it seems that the West Bank is witnessing a similar situation.
Yes, Suhair, Israel uses many forms of aggression against the Palestinian nation. In addition to tightening the siege that has been imposed on the Palestinians, the Israeli settlement activities here in the West Bank have also been increased. 2 weeks after the Annapolis conference, Israel announced that it will build 300 additional units in the Israeli settlement of Abu Hunim in eastern Jerusalem. This step angered the Palestinians, who demanded that Israel fulfill its obligations, as was indicated in the Roadmap for Peace, which called for dismantling Israeli settlements in return for ending violence by Palestinians.
Israel wants to put the Palestinians in a situation that is similar to what happened right after the Oslo peace accords. It wants the Palestinians to engage in endless negotiations while continuing to build settlements and confiscating more land.
The Israeli settlement activities are not exclusive to occupied Jerusalem or expanding the already existing settlements in the West Bank. Israel has now started building new settlements. Israeli settlers started to build the foundation of 9 settlements, including ones which the occupation army had abandoned several months ago. In what seems to be a media stunt, the Israeli police evacuated 60 settlers who gathered in the new settlement of Malay Halhul near Hebron. Israel is officially increasing settlements in the Palestinian territories, which contradicts the basic articles of the Roadmap for Peace. This has forced the Palestinian negotiators to focus on demanding that Israel stop the construction of settlements rather than discussing the final status issues with their Israeli counterparts. Mohammed Al-Sayed, Dubai Television, Ramallah.
وإلى قضية النقاش لهذا اليوم حيث نبحث فيها إصرار حكومة عباس فياض.
In today's program, we will discuss the reasons why the illegitimate government of Abbas and Fayyad cut the salaries of employees working in Gaza. During the current month, the salaries of 4,000 employees were cut, including the salaries of 500 Palestinian teachers. This raises the number of employees who stopped receiving their salaries to more than 40,000. Dear audience, let us first watch the following report.
While the Zionist attacks and siege on Gaza have simultaneously intensified, Fayyad's government cut the salaries of employees working there. The salaries of up to 40,000 employees have been cut since July 2007. The salaries of 35 employees at the Aqsa University were cut, as well as the salaries of many teachers and employees working in schools and government institutions.
في المدارس والوزارات الحكومية.
نرفض تسييس التعليم من أي طرف.
We refuse to subject education to political disputes because if we mix education and politics, then this will only benefit the occupation. The entire world is taking advantage of the Palestinian people, and education is our only salvation.
The Employees Guild held a press conference and expressed regret that the salaries of people have been cut by the Dayton government in Ramallah. Donor countries have asked this government to resume paying the employees' salaries and inquired about the money that has not been paid to the employees.
We urge the donor countries, especially Qatar, to stop this policy, which has been used by the Fayyad government. We appreciate the fact that Qatar has been paying the salaries of all the teachers, as well as the European Union, which has been paying 1,500 shekels for every employee at the health ministry.
Educators and teachers said that what the Dayton government in Ramallah is doing is a blatant violation to the basic Palestinian law pertaining to higher education. They demanded that all Palestinians show solidarity with the teachers. Meanwhile, the Employees Union said that it has met with officials from the legitimate Palestinian government, headed by Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh, and said that there were positive responses.
When we learned that the salaries of thousands of people were cut, we met with our brothers from the Palestinian ministries as well as those from the office of the Prime Minister. We discussed with them various ways to solve this crisis. Thank God we can say that we heard positive responses.
What is strange is that even the salaries of employees from the Fatah movement were cut, despite the fact that they have been staying home as they were demanded to do by the government of Dayton and Ramallah. All honorable people must stay united against such policies. The government of Fayyad still refuses to pay the salaries of employees, sending a clear message that all those who do not support it are declared enemies. Why is education being subjected to political disputes? Or is this a deliberate policy to deny the Palestinians in Gaza the right to education?
In
a recent report, an Israeli organization expressed its worry about the increased racism against Palestinians inside Israel. The annual report of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, ACRI, found that 55% of the Israeli Jews agree on encouraging Palestinians in Israel to migrate. 78% oppose the political participation of parties representing the Arabs in the Israeli government. Shadi Abu Hamda has the details.
قد تكون الأولى عالميا لكن النتيجة غير مشرفة ولا تبعث على الفخر لسبب.
In this category, Israel might be ranked number one in the world, but this title is nothing to be proud of when it refers to racism. This was demonstrated by the numbers and percentages in the annual report of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel. The report indicated an increase in racist activities against Arabs in Israel, starting with calls for the death of Arabs and extending to targeting Arab freedom of expression. The report found that 55% of Israeli Jews agree on encouraging the Arabs in Israel to migrate. 75% don't want Arabs to live in their residential buildings. 56% support a complete separation between themselves and Arabs in recreational areas. As for Palestinians, the numbers did not show anything new, as the brutal reality they experience cannot be contained in numbers. The apartheid wall alone is enough to place Israel on the throne of racism and discrimination. The Israeli study also showed that 61% of Jews refuse to establish friendships with Arabs. A third of the sample said they consider Arabs to be dirty and ignorant. Although the study is recent, its results are old and known by the world, or rather, it's known to those who want to know. For decades, racist education has been taught in the Israeli schools. Its roots are found in the poisonous thoughts of rabbis like Ovadia Yosef and others who liken Arabs to snakes that need to be killed. While Israeli academics and leaders compete in their flattery of Israel, trying to show it in the best light, 87% of the Jews in Israel oppose the participation of parties representing the Arab population in the government. The most recent example of Israeli racism is reflected in Olmert's demand that Arabs recognize Israel as a Jewish state. With this, the opinion of people is in harmony with their leaders' opinions about Arab people.
الموضوع الإيراني قال الرئيس محمود أحمد نجاد أن تقرير الاستخبارات الأمريكية الأخير
Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said that the latest U.S. intelligence report regarding the Iranian nuclear file is a step forward. During a press conference in Tehran, Ahmadinejad said that his country's relations with the U.S. will improve if Washington takes further steps.
این اقدام دولت آمریکا رو یک گام مثبت ارزیابی می‌کنیم.
I think that the Americans, if they were a bit more accurate, would find that our nuclear program has been peaceful, even before 2003. The report is positive and can be considered a first step forward. If there are more such steps, then the prospects for the relationship between Iran and the United States will be open and positive. However, America must change its policy in the region. Since the beginning, we said that our nuclear activities are peaceful and comply with the laws of the International Atomic Energy Agency.
To discuss this issue, we have from London Mr. Hamid Ghul Sharif, an expert on Iranian issues. Mr. Ghul Sharif, the Iranian president said that the latest U.S. intelligence report is a step forward and that there are further steps that could contribute to settling regional and bilateral issues. What are these steps that President Ahmadinejad envisions?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا أعتقد هذه الخطوة التي يتكلم عنها الرئيس الإيراني.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, I think that the step the Iranian president is talking about is not a step taken by the U.S. administration itself. However, it was a step that allowed the U.S. administration to get out of the dilemma it created for itself in the region. The U.S. found itself being drawn into a military confrontation with the Islamic Republic. I think the release of this report has allowed the U.S. to get out of the dilemma and to re-examine the cards it has been dealt in the region, including the Islamic Republic of Iran, and negotiations with the parties related not only to the nuclear file, but the many stalled issues between the Islamic Republic and the United States. The U.S. wants to get out of a confrontational position with the Islamic Republic and open other files in order to begin direct negotiations with Iran. I think that this began with the issue of Iraq, and the U.S. will be more optimistic about opening other files through direct negotiations with Iran.
الولايات المتحدة ستكون متفاعلة أكثر لفتح ملفات أخرى من خلال المفاوضات
Being called one of Africa's longest territorial disputes. Morocco claims the territory as its own, but the Polisario Front seeks to gain independence for Western Sahara. Now the front is convening its first General Congress since 2003, and it's meant to be a landmark one. Sahrawi leaders will propose preparing to resume war against Morocco. Let's take a look now at some of the background. In 1991, the UN sponsored a ceasefire accord between Morocco and the Polisario. They've been fighting in a low-level war since 1975. Now, the troops of the Sahrawi Popular Army of Liberation, or the SPLA, number about 7,000 people. Active soldiers they are. They're based in the region of Tindouf, which is in southwestern Algeria. The SPLA is mainly equipped with Russian-made weaponry donated by Algeria. It can also display a wide variety of military material, much of it captured over the years from Spanish, Mauritanian and Moroccan forces. Now, on the other side of all of this, Morocco has called on the UN to prevent the Polisario from holding its Congress in the Tifariti buffer zone, arguing that it violates the ceasefire accord. But the untold story in this dispute is about the young generation of Sahrawi refugees. Those youngsters have seen no war in their lifetime, just the dire conditions in the Tindouf camps. Zaina Awad went to meet them.
This is a place that's too harsh for most life to grow. Yet it's the home of tens of thousands of Sahrawis. The Polisario, a guerrilla movement that fought to end Moroccan control over Western Sahara, is their government in exile here. The Polisario maintains an iron grip on these refugee camps, running them like mini-states. This community survives on charity handouts, mostly from the UN. But the UN itself is struggling to keep up in the face of donor fatigue.
We would like to bring the attention of the international community to this tragedy, refugee situation, which unfortunately seems to have been forgotten by many.
26-year-old Ali is one of those forgotten refugees. He was born here and has only known life in exile.
We will get independence, either through arms or through politics.
There are negotiations going on with the Polisario. Are you optimistic?
I have very little hope. Maybe 5%. The remaining 95% is liberation through arms.
The war between the Polisario and Morocco ended over 15 years ago. At the time, the UN committed itself to holding a referendum for Sahrawis to decide their fate. The Sahrawis are still waiting for that referendum to take place. And like Ali, the young generation is growing less patient and more radicalized.
The pilgrim Zamzam was overtaken with great joy as she prepared for her religious duty of Hajj this year. She couldn't hide her feelings amongst her family and friends who celebrated in bidding her farewell. Ahmed Bagato accompanied her on her journey to the airport in Cairo.
In villages, the atmosphere preceding a pilgrim's journey to the Hajj is filled with songs and trilling sounds of joy. Here, in one of the villages of Al Mansoura, the pilgrim Zamzam prepares to set off tomorrow to the Holy Land of Mecca. The house is filled with visitors, as is customary. Relatives and neighbors have come to celebrate her journey to the Hajj.
This is a custom of ours. We go to congratulate anyone who is going to the Hajj. It's an expression of our fondness.
On the way here, I was constantly praying that I too will get to go to Hajj. That's why I'm asking her to pray for me there, so that God will hear her prayer and grant me this wish. I have done the Umrah, but I yearn to take the big step, the Hajj. Please grant it to me, oh God.
Since the pilgrim Zamzam knew she was going to the Hajj this year, she's been too excited to sleep, filled with joy and yearning for the holy Mecca. Her neighbors came to ask her to pray for them, which is usually what kin ask their pilgrims to do, a prayer to God.
When my neighbors and family came to congratulate me, I felt such joy. May God accept my Hajj.
The pilgrim Zamzam is ready to go to the airport. Her family will be by her side until she boards the plane. With tears and exultations to God, the family accompanies her on the most beautiful path a person can take. The pilgrim's tent in Cairo's airport is filled with seekers from all over Egypt. The only thing connecting them is their desire to receive God's forgiveness.
I'm just filled with joy. I'm so happy. May we complete the Hajj, enjoy it, and repent our sins, and may God make Islam victorious.
I was just so happy that I was crying. I couldn't believe it. May God keep you all well, and may we all return to our homes safely and reunite with our loved ones.
May God ease the way for us, and may we arrive in peace. May God accept our prayers and our Hajj.
The pilgrim is completing the necessary travel procedures. Within a few hours, she will be in God's favorite spot on earth. Her relatives bid her farewell, in their hearts wishing her a blessed Hajj and the forgiveness of sins. Ahmed Bagatu, Al Arabiya, Cairo.
Terrorist strikes hit Algeria and Lebanon. Is this an act of revenge by Al-Qaeda? And what is the connection? The answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
This week, 2 car bombs exploded in the Algerian capital, killing at least 62 people and injuring scores more. A day later, a top general in the Lebanese army was killed when a powerful car bomb exploded beside his vehicle in a residential suburb of Beirut. Is there a connection between these two brutal attacks? I believe there is. The perpetrators in Algeria are easy to track. The pictures of the two bombers, Abdul Rahman Al-Asimi and Ammi Ibrahim Abu Uthman, appeared on the website of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, formerly known as the Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat. The organization claimed responsibility for loading 2 cars with 800 kilograms of explosives in a bid to attack the headquarters of the International Infidels Den, that is, the United Nations building. Back in January 2007, the leader of the Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat, Abu Mus'ab Abdul Wadud, pledged allegiance to bin Laden and promised to wage a violent campaign against the government of Bouteflika and the West. Despite similarly devastating suicide attacks in the capital of Algeria and an assassination attempt on President Bouteflika, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has been losing ground to the Algerian government. Many of its members have been killed or arrested. The recent attack on a soft target like the United Nations headquarters was nothing short of a desperate act of revenge for its fallen commanders who, according to the group's website, are fighting the slaves of America and the sons of France. The situation in Lebanon is a little more complicated. Nevertheless, the assassination of General Francois Alhaj, the chief of operations in the Lebanese army, cannot be explained as Lebanese politics as usual. Although Alhaj is the 9th prominent Lebanese who have been killed since February 2005, when former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri was killed in a truck bomb explosion, attacks against members of the Lebanese security services are rare. So, who is responsible for his assassination?
Everyone supported him as the next army chief. Whoever killed him clearly didn't want him to take over that position. He was loved here, a man who was fair and had principles.
General Francois Alhaj earned nationwide praise for his role in the 3-month battle this summer with Fath al-Islam, an Al-Qaeda-inspired faction that was based in the Nahr al-Barid Palestinian refugee camp in North Lebanon. As head of military operations, Hajj played a prominent role in confrontation as well as in organizing the deployment of Lebanese troops along the border with Syria, through which militants and weapons are alleged to have been smuggled into Lebanon. His murder is a simple act of revenge by yet another Al-Qaeda-inspired organization. The emergence of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb in Algeria and Fath al-Islam in Lebanon is no coincidence. The leaders of Al-Qaeda have advocated that the jihad spread to the Levant. In 2005, the number 2 man in Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, wrote, "It has always been my belief that the victory of Islam will never take place until a Muslim state is established, and the center would be in Bilad al-Sham, or the Levant and Egypt." Earlier this year, he urged his followers in Al-Maghreb to target France, Spain, and Algeria. I'm Jamal Dajani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report. To learn more about this program or to share your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/mosaic.
What are you giving this holiday season? Is it this? Or this? Or maybe this? This year, why not make a change? And give your friends and family the world. Now it's easy and meaningful to give the gift of Link TV. Just go to linktv.org or call 1-866-485-8848 to honor those you care about with a tax-deductible gift in their name to Link TV. Choose from one of 3 designs and have a personalized holiday card sent to everyone on your list, letting your loved ones know you've made them official sponsors of Television Without Borders. This holiday season, remember peace on earth is possible when we see the world without borders. Happy holidays from Link TV, and don't forget to send your card today.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.